The most dangerous relationships don't feel toxic. They feel calm, polite, functional. You're not fighting. She's not demanding. Everything seems fine, except you're constantly paying, constantly adjusting, and constantly feeling like you're one step behind what's expected. That's because the relationship isn't emotional. It's logistical. You're not loved for who you are. You're valued for how stable you make her life. And stability can be extracted without intimacy. There are 7 signs that reveal when you're being kept for convenience rather than chosen for connection. Once you recognize them, you stop trying to buy your place in someone's life and start protecting the value you bring into it. This isn't about blaming women, and it's definitely not about turning bitter. It's about protecting a man from trading his self-respect, his energy, and his future for temporary validation. I'm speaking to you as a woman who understands how women think when security starts to matter more than love. If that perspective matters to you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's break this down clearly, calmly, and without illusions. Before we talk about signs, patterns, or red flags, you need to understand something fundamental. Gold digging doesn't start with greed. It starts with fear. Most men assume women who chase money are shallow or manipulative by nature. That assumption is convenient, but it's incomplete. What actually drives this behavior runs much deeper, and if you don't understand the psychology behind it, you'll keep misreading the situation until it costs you time, money, and self-respect. At the core, there are 2 dominant emotional forces at play. The first is fear of instability. For some women, instability isn't an abstract idea, it's a lived memory. Chaos, insecurity, a childhood where money was scarce, stress was constant, and safety was never guaranteed. When that fear goes unresolved, it doesn't disappear. It simply evolves. As an adult, that fear attaches itself to relationships. Money becomes synonymous with safety. A man becomes a buffer against uncertainty. The second force is the craving for security. Not comfort, not luxury. Security, predictability, control. When security becomes the emotional priority, love no longer leads the decision-making process. It follows it, if it shows up at all. This is where the pattern begins. Some women are raised in environments where material success is treated as identity. Status isn't just admired, it's respected, validated, rewarded. Over time, money stops being a tool and starts becoming proof of worth. Being with a man who has resources doesn't just feel safer, it feels like elevation. Others struggle with financial insecurity in the present. They may be capable, intelligent, even ambitious, but internally, they're tired of struggling. Relationships start to look less like connection and more like strategy, not consciously malicious, just quietly transactional. Then there's status as identity. Money isn't only about survival, it's about visibility. Being seen as chosen by a high-status man becomes a shortcut to self-worth. It grants access to circles, validation, and a version of life they believe they couldn't achieve alone. And finally, there's poverty trauma. When someone has lived without, the fear of returning there can dominate their decisions. Love becomes secondary to insurance. Emotional compatibility becomes negotiable. What matters most is never feeling powerless again. Here's the truth most men need to hear, even if it stings. When security becomes the priority, love becomes optional. That doesn't make these women evil, but it does make them dangerous to men who lead with their hearts and pay with their futures. And the signs that reveal this mindset aren't loud. They're subtle, consistent, predictable. Once you understand the psychology, the behaviors you're about to hear won't feel confusing anymore. They'll feel precise. Number 1. She's obsessed with money, and that's not innocent. This doesn't always show up as greed. In fact, that's why so many men miss it. It shows up as curiosity, as practical questions, as casual comments that feel harmless in isolation. She asks what you do for a living. Normal. Then she asks how long you've been doing it, then what the income range looks like, then how much your place costs, then what kind of car you drive. None of these questions are aggressive, but taken together, they form a pattern. Her attention isn't moving toward who you are, it's orbiting what you have. Listen closely to how she talks about the world. Conversations drift toward prices, brands, upgrades, and costs. She remembers what things are worth more than how moments felt. When you share something meaningful, she acknowledges it briefly, then pivots back to money, status, or lifestyle. And then there's the fixation on luxury. She doesn't just enjoy nice things, she expects them. The best restaurants, designer labels, high-end trips, experiences that come with a price tag high enough to feel impressive. Simple options don't excite her, not because they're bad, but because they don't signal value in the way she's measuring it. This is where the trap quietly sets in. At first, paying feels generous, masculine, even romantic. You want to provide, you want to impress, you want to show effort. But over time, you paying stops being appreciation and starts becoming assumption. The bill comes and no one reaches for it. Plans get made that conveniently align with your wallet. Gratitude fades, but expectation doesn't. Here's the emotional shift you need to notice. You stop feeling chosen and start feeling useful. In her eyes, you're not a partner. You're a provider. Not someone she builds with, but someone she extracts from. And once a woman frames you that way internally, the relationship stops being about connection. It becomes about access. Remember this line, because it explains everything that follows. She doesn't like you. She likes what you unlock. And when that's the foundation, no amount of affection will ever feel secure, because it was never built on you in the first place. Number 2, she's never satisfied, because enough was never the goal. At first, you don't notice it. You buy her something nice, and she's happy for a moment. You upgrade the experience, and she appreciates it, briefly. But that feeling never lasts. There's always something else, something bigger, something better, something more. What most men misinterpret as high standards is often something very different, an internal hunger that has no finish line. Every gift you give becomes the new baseline. Every effort you make quietly raises the minimum requirement. And what once impressed her quickly becomes expected. This is where the pressure begins to creep in. She doesn't ask directly. She compares. Other men do this for their women. My friend's boyfriend surprised her with, "I saw this couple travel here." These comments aren't innocent. They're strategic. They're designed to recalibrate your sense of adequacy, to make you feel like you're falling behind, even when you're already giving more than you should. And when comparison alone doesn't work, shame steps in. Suddenly, your effort feels insufficient. Your masculinity feels questioned. You're made to feel like if you really cared, if you were really capable, you'd do more, spend more, stretch further. Here's the psychological reality you need to understand. When desire is unlimited, satisfaction is impossible. You're not failing to meet her needs. Her needs are structured so they can't be met. Because the moment they are, they stop serving their purpose. And that purpose isn't connection, it's extraction. This kind of woman isn't chasing happiness. She's chasing stimulation, validation, the emotional hit that comes from feeling upgraded. And no man, no matter how generous, can sustain that indefinitely. The consequence for you is subtle but devastating. You're always in motion, always trying, always adjusting, but you never arrive. There's no moment where she settles into appreciation. No sense of, we're good. Just a constant forward pull that keeps you spending, financially and emotionally, without ever feeling secure. And that's the trap. Because a relationship that never reaches enough isn't a partnership. It's a treadmill. And the longer you stay on it, the more you'll confuse exhaustion for love. Number 3, What impresses her tells you everything. This is one of the cleanest signals, and also one of the most ignored. Pay attention to what actually moves her, not what she says she values, not what she posts, what genuinely lights her up. A woman who's capable of real connection doesn't need constant stimulation. She can feel closeness in quiet moments, a night in, a home-cooked meal, shared laughter without an audience, time that feels full even when nothing expensive is attached to it. But when money is the driver, those moments fall flat. She's polite about them, she tolerates them, but they don't register as meaningful. They don't create excitement. They don't deepen attraction. What does? The places you take her, the things you buy her, the way your lifestyle looks from the outside. Her eyes light up when there's a price tag involved, when the experience signals status, when it's something she can point to, post, or mentally file under upgrade. This is the difference you need to see clearly. Attraction versus transaction. Attraction grows from presence, from emotional safety, from shared energy. Transaction grows from exchange, from access, from benefit. When a woman is impressed by presence, your attention deepens her interest. When she's impressed by price, your wallet becomes the relationship's backbone, and that erodes something essential over time. You can be physically present and emotionally absent at the same time. You can share space, share plans, even share intimacy, while the connection underneath slowly hollows out. Because the bond isn't being reinforced by who you are. It's being reinforced by what you provide. That's when effort starts to feel mechanical. That's when affection feels conditional. That's when you notice that without spending, the energy drops. Here's the truth most men learn too late. If money creates attraction, money will be the only thing keeping her. And the moment that stops, whether through stress, change, or circumstance, the attraction goes with it. Because it was never anchored to you. It was anchored to the value you represented. Number 4, she's always looking for an exit. This one doesn't announce itself loudly. It shows up in what isn't there. She's physically present, but emotionally uninvested. She enjoys what you offer, but shows little curiosity about who you are beneath it. Your thoughts, your pressures, your inner world, none of it holds her attention for long. That's because in her mind, this relationship is provisional. You're not a choice. You're an option, a placeholder that works for now. You'll notice it in the way she avoids emotional depth. She doesn't ask questions that would bind her to you. She doesn't build long-term emotional context. Conversations stay light, convenient, surface level, because going deeper would create attachment, and attachment would limit flexibility. And while she's with you, she's still scanning. She casually mentions other men, men who are doing really well, men who are next level, men who are richer, more successful, more connected. She frames it as observation, not comparison. But the subtext is clear. She's measuring, not to admire you, but to see what's out there. When insecurity creeps in, she doesn't soothe it with reassurance. She uses tactics instead. Guilt, subtle blame, emotional withdrawal, gaslighting that makes you question whether you're being unreasonable for wanting clarity or consistency. And if she senses that your resources don't match what she initially assumed, the energy shifts. She becomes distant, less responsive, less warm, as if the relationship itself has lost value overnight, because in her mind, it has. Here's the hard truth. A woman who's always looking for a better option can never fully choose you. And when someone hasn't chosen you, they can leave without remorse, without hesitation, without looking back. Because they were never emotionally anchored in the first place. The consequence is subtle but severe. You invest time, money, and emotional bandwidth into something that has an expiration date you didn't agree to. A relationship that feels stable until it suddenly isn't. And by the time you realize what happened, she's already halfway out the door, because she was never all the way in. Number 5. She brags about wealthy exes for a reason. When she brings up men from her past, listen carefully, not to what she says, but to what she emphasizes. It's rarely about connection, rarely about character, rarely about what went wrong emotionally. Instead, she talks about what they had, what they did for her, the lifestyle they provided, the places they took her, the things they bought. Sometimes it sounds casual, sometimes it sounds like storytelling, sometimes it even sounds self-aware. But it's never random. This is social proof in its most subtle form. By highlighting the caliber of men she's dated, she's setting a reference point, a quiet benchmark. She's letting you know what she's used to and watching closely to see how you respond. Do you get uncomfortable? Do you overcompensate? Do you feel pressure to prove yourself? Your reaction tells her exactly where you fall on her internal scale. This is what I call the barometer effect. She's not reminiscing, she's measuring, not reflecting, calibrating. The unspoken question beneath every story is simple. Can you maintain or upgrade this standard? And if she senses hesitation? If she feels that your lifestyle doesn't quite match the narrative she's presenting? The dynamic shifts again. She may downplay your efforts. She may subtly challenge your choices. Or she may frame her past as something you need to live up to, without ever saying it directly. Here's the warning most men overlook. A woman's past patterns are rarely accidents. If her dating history is consistently tied to wealth and status, that's not coincidence, it's preference. And preferences don't disappear just because you're kind, attentive, or emotionally available. The past doesn't just tell a story, it draws a map. And if you ignore that map, you'll walk straight into a future where your value is constantly being weighed against men who came before you and men she believes could come after. Number 6. She doesn't care about your feelings unless it benefits her. This is where the pattern stops being subtle and starts becoming costly. You're there when she needs support, when she's stressed. When something goes wrong in her world, you listen. You reassure. You show up, emotionally and practically. But when the roles reverse, something feels off. When you're tired, overwhelmed, or struggling, her attention fades. She changes the subject, minimizes what you're feeling, or disappears entirely. Your emotions become inconvenient, unless they can be redirected into something useful for her. This creates a one-way emotional system. You give, she receives. Your presence is expected, hers is conditional. You'll notice that she shows up most when there's something to gain. Plans that involve spending, decisions that require your resources, moments where your support directly improves her comfort or status. Outside of that, your inner world barely registers. Over time, this imbalance deepens. She may subtly distance you from people who ground you, friends, family, anyone who might question the dynamic. Not through direct demands, but through guilt. Through framing them as distractions. Through positioning herself as the only one who truly understands you. Isolation makes extraction easier. And then come the financial pressures. She pushes for commitments without regard for your stability. Big purchases, shared expenses, investments framed as for us, but structured in a way where the risk is yours and the benefit is hers. When you hesitate, she questions your dedication instead of acknowledging your reality. Here's the consequence most men don't see until it's too late. You start feeling drained, not because relationships are hard, but because this one is hollow. Your energy drops, your enthusiasm fades, your sense of self erodes. And while you're depleted, she remains full, emotionally insulated, materially supported, and largely unaffected. That's not partnership, that's consumption. And the longer you stay in a dynamic where your feelings are optional, the more you teach someone that your limits don't matter. Number 7. Her friends tell the truth she won't say. Pay attention to the women she surrounds herself with, because they normalize the behavior she lives by. People rarely exist in isolation. Values cluster. Mindsets echo. And when it comes to how women view men, money, and relationships, their inner circle quietly reinforces what's acceptable. If most of her friends talk about men in terms of what they provide, what they spend, or how they upgrade lifestyles, that's not coincidence, that's culture. A shared framework where men are measured by output, not character. You'll hear it in casual conversations. He should be doing more. If he really cared, he'd pay. That's just how relationships work. These statements don't sound predatory on the surface, but they reveal an underlying belief system, one where emotional connection is secondary and extraction is normal. This is where many men make a critical mistake. They tell themselves, she's different, smarter, kinder, more self-aware. But here's the uncomfortable reality. A woman rarely operates in direct opposition to her closest influences for long. Her friends validate her expectations, reinforce her standards, normalize her behavior. When she complains, they don't ask whether she's being fair. They ask whether she's getting enough. That's the similarity attraction principle in real life. Like attracts like. People bond over shared priorities, not just shared history. So if her circle is driven by material gain, status signaling, and transactional dynamics, she's absorbing that energy whether she admits it or not. And that matters, because circles don't just reflect values, they shape them. This is often the final confirmation men need. When you step back and look at the full picture, the money fixation, the dissatisfaction, the conditional affection, the exit mindset, and then see a circle that reinforces all of it, that's clarity. At that point, it's no longer about guessing her intentions. It's about accepting the pattern in front of you. And once you see it clearly, the decision stops being emotional. Because now you're not reacting. You're choosing. Not every woman is a gold digger, but every gold digger leaves a trail. Patterns don't lie, they repeat. And once you've seen them clearly, it becomes impossible to unsee what's really happening beneath the surface. Here's the reframe most men need to hear. Love doesn't drain you. Transactions do. A healthy relationship doesn't make you feel smaller over time. It doesn't quietly turn your value into a number. It doesn't leave you questioning whether you're appreciated or just useful. When a woman is genuinely invested, your presence matters more than your purchases. Your direction matters more than your spending. And your boundaries don't threaten her. They earn her respect. The moment you realize that your worth isn't tied to what you provide, everything changes. You stop overextending. You stop proving. You stop negotiating your self-respect for affection. And that's where real power returns. Because the most attractive position a man can occupy isn't wealth, it's standards. Standards that say, I choose relationships that build me, not bleed me. Standards that say, I don't buy love, I allow it. If this conversation sharpened your awareness, subscribe to the channel. This space exists to help you see the game clearly before you step onto the field. Drop a comment if you recognized one or more of these signs in your own experience. You're not alone, and clarity is always the first step forward. And if you know a man who's spending more, giving more, and feeling less every day, share this with him. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can offer another man isn't advice, it's the truth, delivered in time, delivered in